Welcome to True Real Studio, where we bring you some of the best stories from around the internet. If this is something you're interested in, please like, subscribe, and click the notifications so you don't miss a video. You can find all the original creators' links in the description. Tonight, we delve into 6 spine-chilling tales of harassment that will keep you on edge. Our first story comes from @IMR Scary Tales, where a couple faces harassment from their strange neighbor. He's been filming them without consent, leading to a terrifying confrontation that will leave you questioning who you can really trust.
In this story, we'll see a couple who just moved into this house. What they didn't know before moving in is that they were going to be harassed by a strange neighbor who films their every move. The story you are about to see is loosely based on the footage. Being a YouTuber, I'm used to being filmed. At first, I was a little scared. The camera made me uncomfortable. As my community got bigger and bigger, I felt more and more comfortable being filmed. I thought I was destined to be a public person. That all changed since that one terrifying week. The week someone else filmed me, and I didn't feel so comfortable anymore. It all started during a warm summer night. I was in the upstairs bedroom of my house while my wife was reading a book in the dining room. I was just finishing setting up the room, but the light coming from my neighbor's yard was shining against the window and blinding me.
Is he looking for something?
I peeked through the window to see what was going on and was shocked by the surprise. That light was not a flashlight. It was a camera. To make it even worse, the camera was filming directly in the dining room of my house, where my wife was. I kept quiet for a few seconds to see if it was a misunderstanding. But no, the man was getting closer and closer with his camera. I opened the window furious and shouted at him.
Dude, what's your problem? Oh, hell no.
I wasn't going to allow this. I ran to his house and pounded on the door furiously, but no one answered.
I know you're in there. Open the door now.
Finding no answer, I decided to go back to my house.
Let me guess. He didn't open the door?
He didn't even answer me.
What a weirdo.
I've never seen him before. Do you know anything about him?
Next to nothing. The whole neighborhood says he lives alone with his mother. He rarely leaves the house and he has everything delivered.
And then, how does he bring food to the table?
It's a mystery. They say he may have inherited some money, or that he works with computers. Whatever. I just hope that after this he doesn't bother me again.
Everything was back to normal. Until one day, I received a WhatsApp message. The message was from an unknown number. I thought it was a fan, but his profile picture was that of the neighbor. The man was casually hugging his mother, looking at the camera with a shy smile. Nervous about what I might find, I opened the video and covered my mouth so as not to scare my wife. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The video was of our own house, but from inside. Whoever was filming us came into our room where we were both sleeping. The man approached us and filmed both our faces, zooming in on mine. Was this a threat? My wife was not there, so I sent a voice message to my wife telling her what was going on, and furious, I went straight to the neighbor's house. When I got there, I banged on the door furiously, and before I could start yelling, the door opened. On the other side was the stalker's mother.
How are you, boy? Do you need anything?
I need to talk to your son.
Oh, Charlie is in his room. Did something happen?
Your son is stalking me and my wife.
No. It must be a mistake. Little Charlie would never do that.
Little Charlie? The man must have been in his 50s.
Come on, let's go to his room together. I'm sure it was all a misunderstanding.
We both walked to his room. I couldn't help but feel sorry for this lady. Her heart was about to break. She was convinced that her son was innocent. All the way she talked to me with a big smile, hoping that everything could be fixed. The lady opened her son's door, and even though he was there, sitting on the floor, my attention went elsewhere. The whole room was full of pictures of me and my wife stuck to the wall. They were everywhere. How long had he been harassing us? How did the mother not notice? The answer came immediately.
Son, what have I told you about harassing people without telling them?
That it's wrong, Mom.
Something was wrong here. The stalker was trembling with fear, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his mother.
Do you have something to say to the man? Say it.
I'm in love with you.
All right, now come closer and give him a kiss.
What? Please, Mama. I don't want to kiss the man.
Do what I told you, you insolent scumbag!
I'm sorry, Mom. Sir, I love you.
Before I could answer her, the mother grabbed Pear angrily.
That's an apology? Say it with more emotion.
Mom, I love you, not him. I don't even want to take the pictures of him.
You have to love him because I want you to. This is all your fault. If you had taught me how to use the cell phone, I wouldn't have sent him that video. Now he hates me because of you.
You sent me the video?
I'm sorry, young man. I just wanted to watch it and touch myself. I feel very lonely, and my son can't reach me anymore.
No, don't say that, Mom.
That doesn't mean that I don't love you, dear. Come, give Mom a kiss. Charlie, we discussed him. He broke Mom's heart. Aren't you gonna do anything?
I don't want to kill him, Mom.
Don't you love me? Do it, or I won't kiss you anymore.
Yes, Mom.
His gaze turned to me. He no longer looked like a scared or sad man. His eyes were full of hate and decision. There was no fear at all. He had done this before.
Hey, man, I'll leave. I won't bother you anymore. Hey, I'm sorry.
He wants to go. Kill him.
With that said, the man started to chase me around the house. I was aware that maybe I could defend myself, but this man was going to kill me, and I was not willing to go that far. I quickly ran in the direction of the exit door, and on the way, the man grabbed a knife from the kitchen and threw it at my back. The throw was perfect, but the knife didn't go through me. It hit me on the door side. I got in the car and sped off on my way to my wife's work, and when I got there, I told her everything. We notified the police, but all to no avail. There was no way to prove what happened, other than a video of the man taking pictures. All the rest of the evidence, gone. They quickly deleted the cell phone video and removed the photos from the man's room. My wife and I decided to stop paying rent and move to her sister's house, who welcomed us with open arms. I never heard from that family again. I just hope that the next family I go to will not fall victim to that psycho nanny and her son. Hey guys, I hope you're
That was truly unsettling. Imagine living right next to someone who watches your every move. Next, we dive into a story from @MJV Animations. This time, a high school student is tormented by a bully, and it doesn't end at the school gates. It escalates into a terrifying home invasion, revealing a shocking twist about an unexpected accomplice. Buckle up for this one.
Hi, I'm writing this today because I love your channel, and I thought it might be a great opportunity to share my story. I have short hair, snakebite piercings, a septum piercing, a nose piercing, and I wear oversized men's clothes, as that's what I'm most comfortable in. I have no problem with people viewing me as masculine, so it was my first day in 11th grade. I was having lunch with my best friend Sally when she gestured to a boy sitting next to us. His name was Henry, and everyone knew him to be the big bully since middle school. Surprisingly, I noticed Henry staring at me with a creepy smile. I never talked to him before, so I felt weird when he smiled at me. The rest of the day, wherever I went, Henry's eyes followed me. When my last class bell rang and it was time to go home, I got a call from my dad saying that he was going to visit my uncle at the hospital battling cancer. Meaning, I was going to be at home alone, as my mom was at work and my older sister was sleeping over at her boyfriend's house. I got off the bus and began walking home. I live in a small town, so the side roads are almost always empty. But as I was walking past an alleyway, someone grabbed my arm and pulled me over. It was Henry. Before I could even process what was happening, Henry kissed me. I pushed him away and he screamed. "What? You were smiling at me, remember? I thought we shared a moment." I was shocked, realizing how delusional this guy was. I yelled back at him, "No, you're the one who smiled. And FYI, I'm into girls." I saw the anger in his eyes as he just said fine in annoyance and stormed off. I took a second to process what just happened before I continued walking home. I didn't share this with my parents and went to bed after watching Walking Dead reruns. I usually sleep with one window open for cross ventilation. Around 3 a.m., I heard a quiet noise. Now, I have a guinea pig, so I'm used to noises, but this one sounded different. I immediately became alarmed and slowly looking around the room. Someone was crawling through the window and entering my bedroom. Seeing an intruder, the normal reaction should be screaming, but I was too shaken by this. I laid on the bed, frozen like a mummy, when the man stopped and turned to me. He stood still and watched for a few seconds, but all of a sudden, picked up speed and ran right at me. Before I could scream, he placed his hand on my mouth. Then, when I realized that it was Henry. Luckily, my dad was still awake downstairs, and he saw someone jumping our fence from our living room. He slammed through the door of my room so hard that Henry's face turned pale. He tried to jump out through the window and escape, but my dad grabbed his t-shirt and pulled him back in. The police arrested Henry and took him away in handcuffs. I hugged my mom while struggling to hold back my tears. I was so scared, and I didn't know that he wanted or even knew how he knew my address, but I figured that he must have followed me home. The next morning, I woke up and called my best friend to tell them about this incident, but she didn't pick up. I wasn't too concerned about it, as she often slept in, so I decided to just get ready for school and wait for her there. The day passed and she never came, so I tried calling her, but she didn't answer again. I figured that she was still sick and decided to go to her house to see if everything was okay. When I made it to her house, I knocked, but no one answered. Her parents were out on a business trip, and she was supposed to be home alone. I called her again. I could hear her phone ringing inside the house. I tried the door and noticed that the door was unlocked, so I went inside. I called out to her so she would know that I was there, but there was no response. I walked up the stairs and into her room, and I was mortified by what I saw. There she was, lying unconscious on her bed, and someone scribbled this on her wall. "Once she's gone, you'll be all mine." I called my parents, and they called for a paramedic. Sally was rushed to the hospital. The doctors said that she fainted out of shock. I immediately thought that it had to be Henry who did this, but then I remembered that he was under police custody right now. 2 days later, when Sally was a little bit better, she told the cops that a guy named Zach from school had snuck into her house with a knife and threatened to kill her. His demeanor was that of like a psycho, which terrorized Sally as she fainted. I didn't know what he wanted, but Zach kept saying one thing repeatedly. "I have to do this for my best friend. I promised Henry." Zach was eventually arrested and put behind bars for being an accomplice of Henry. It was found later that Henry brainwashed Zach and told him to be on board with his plan. Henry wanted me to be his girlfriend, but when I rejected him, he didn't handle the rejection well. It's scary to think that Zach was so obsessed about his friendship with Henry that he didn't even think of the consequences before breaking into Sally's house. Sally and I filed for restraining orders against Henry and Zach because sadly, they haven't done enough to stay behind bars forever. But judging their mental condition and evil intentions, I wouldn't be shocked if these two turned out to be terrifying criminals in the future.
What a chilling revelation. It's horrifying to think a bully's reach could extend so far. Our next gripping tale is shared by a Let's Read podcast. A man recounts his nightmarish ordeal of being tortured by home invaders. Just when it seems all hope is lost, his son becomes the unexpected hero. Brace yourself for a story where family bonds prove stronger than fear.
This was a 3-bedroom condo without an attic or basement, and I remained there for another 2 years before getting my own place across town. I've been here ever since. After moving from the house, it seems all of our lives have improved. I'm fit, happy, and in a loving relationship. My mom found love with a gentleman from work and they married a year ago. Even poor Alec is doing well. His breathing problems slowly disappeared after the move. Doctors would discover his problems were likely related to the massive amounts of black mold we had been inhaling. After the diagnosis was made, the health department contacted the landlord only to discover the house had been demolished soon after we left. I see this as an admission of guilt. Alec's night terrors gradually lessened with the passage of time, and from what he tells us, he rarely thinks about the incident anymore. I'm not sure he's being totally truthful, but I'm happy to hear it nonetheless. The intruder is still on the loose, as far as I know. He's not even been identified. We'll probably never know the full story. He could have gotten in through an unlocked door or a window. At that point, he could have had a key made for the back door. Our big ring of keys that hung on a hook next to the kitchen wouldn't be hard to find, and from then on, he'd have free reign over the house during the weekdays. He more than likely heard us discuss our plans from his cubby in the basement, and that idea still gives me shivers. He'd be content in knowing when he would come and go safely without fear of being caught. That was until Alec arrived home unexpected. I suppose it's no longer important if he was arrested for his crime. All 3 of us have moved past the experience for the most part. Any long-term effects have dulled with time. A small thing does arise, however. I do wonder if our intruder has moved on to another basement. It's a part of the home most of us spend little to no time in. Perhaps you reading this are one of these people. Can you be so sure no one is lurking undetected below you, listening to your every word and move? Maybe you should go check, just to be sure. Somewhere on the wind-blown plains of Middle America, there stands a home. It's a regular, unassuming home. Nothing in its appearance draws your attention, nor marks it out as different. But this home once held a dark secret, one that would remain hidden for the most part until today. You see, once upon a time, not all that long ago really, this was my home. I was among a small number of young men. We resided in the dark depths of the home's basement. 5 in total. We existed there not by choice, but by decree. Our days were consumed in work while our nights were spent in dreaming. Among those dreams we often entertained the idea of freedom. Fortunately for myself and the others, one brave member of our community would make these dreams flesh. She is the reason I'll be able to share my story today. I suppose I should start with the larger aspects of the tale before focusing on myself. No real names or locations will be used. It all began way before I was born. Around the mid-1960s, a young charismatic preacher built a dedicated group around him. His theology was different from most in the faith. According to his teachings, Mary Magdalene was given the power to speak the word of God by Jesus himself. Upon his ascent to heaven, Mary effectively became the head of the Christian Church. Through the generations, this line was passed down into our Holy Father, who traced himself back to Mary Magdalene herself, ascended to the position. This idea was surprisingly well received at the time. By 1980, he had amassed a congregation of over 3,500. However, as times changed, more and more devotees left the church for all number of reasons. When I was born in 1993, our group had dwindled to around 125. A few years earlier, the church had purchased a small piece of land in the upper area of the Midwest. All the buildings were built by hand by the congregation. Everyone was required to live on this compound, and all labor was evenly divvied among the members. It was very similar to the communes popular in the 1960s and 1970s. I can only assume our church was built around the same model. I'm leaving a lot out, but I hope you get the idea. The community was similar to the agrarian lifestyles of centuries past, and most work was still done by hand in my time. Machines were not shunned. Still, many took pride in doing things on their own, no matter the hardship. This was the type of family I grew up in. Now, I'll take a few moments to better explain what led us to living in a basement. Almost from the start, females enjoyed an exalted position in our faith. They served as apostles and teachers to the young and newer members. Other than our leader himself, no man held any position of power. This was an accepted part and was rarely questioned. A male had to be married to remain in or join the congregation. In later years, our leader put a severe restriction on new marriages. Therefore, the younger males unable to find a partner or simply uninterested in marrying would be forced out soon after reaching the age of 21. Near the end, we became a little more than beasts of burden, strong hands for the field, among other things. The biggest change yet came in 1998. The Holy Father decreed that all males must be sent to live in the youth dorm at the time of puberty. For propriety's sake, the basement was termed the youth dorm, but we all knew it was just a regular old drafty basement. This pronouncement only served to further fracture an already ailing group. Unfortunately for me, my parents were diehards. We remained on the farm along with the last 75 or so devotees. When my time came at 13, I did as I was told and took my place in the basement. Although the adjustment period was difficult, a strong bond soon formed with my fellow prisoners, as I put it. From dawn to dusk, we worked ourselves ragged, our only respite coming on Sundays, in which we spent the mornings in holy services. The remainder of the day was our own. However, those who did not volunteer for additional tasks were required to remain in our quarters. While far more terrible things would be suffered by us during our time there, I'm still unfortunately unable to discuss them. Maybe it's better that they stay buried. Out of nowhere in 2010, an unlikely individual would change everything. Ruth was just another congregant, but by advantage of being born a woman, she held a leadership position in the church. Although not lofty by any means, it held a substantial amount of power nonetheless. Unknown to anyone inside the group at the time, she had been building a large body of information implicating the Holy Father in multiple crimes. On several of her visits into town, she met with law enforcement and their colleagues in the district attorney's office. They were especially interested in the Holy Father's treatment of males in the church. However, he had also been cheating on his taxes. This was the crime he was ultimately in prison for. When the day came that Ruth turned over all her documents to authorities, the church ceased to exist. A judge ruled our treatment to be inhumane and immoral, and we left the basement for the final time later that week. Everything else was handled quietly, behind closed doors, as to prevent embarrassment to the local community. When I was finally able to speak with Ruth face to face, I asked her why. She said the treatment of men within the congregation had always bothered her. Her father's in particular. And just the year prior, she had begun a secret relationship with one of the young men in the dorm. She knew they would likely not be allowed to marry as long as things continued as they did. The final straw was what she discovered while digging. The extent of the Holy Father's corruption sickened her. Her intent had not been to destroy the church, but she eventually realized it was inextricably interwoven with him. I greatly admired her, or any person willing to sacrifice everything for those they love.
The courage in that story is inspiring, yet the terror is palpable. Now, let's move on to a tale from @Mr. Nightmare. Working a night shift at Walmart turns into a nightmare when a woman approaches the narrator with a warning. A man has been recording her. What follows is a heart-pounding escape from a planned abduction. This story will make you think twice about your surroundings.
This happened a couple weeks ago. I worked the night shift at Walmart. It's not the worst job in the world, but after a while, it starts to feel like you're just floating through time. The nights blend together. Same shelves, same routine, same dull hum of the overhead lights. Hopefully something better comes along. I usually hang out in and stock the electronics section, which is nice because it's quieter than the other areas. People don't exactly come rushing in at 2 a.m. to buy phone chargers and Bluetooth speakers. Most of the customers are either night owls killing time or truckers grabbing last-minute supplies before heading back on the road. That's why I noticed him. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another guy wandering the aisles, probably waiting for someone. But after a few minutes, I realized he wasn't shopping. He wasn't even pretending to. He just kept appearing. Every time I glanced up, he was lingering nearby, hovering in the next aisle over or standing a little too still by the clearance section. He wasn't looking at anything. He was just standing there, watching me. I told myself I was overthinking it. The store is big and maybe he was just taking his time. But the way he moved, always just close enough for me to notice, never actually picking anything up, it set something deep in my gut on edge. I was waiting for him to just get on with it and ask for my number, but he never approached me. It was like he wanted me to see him, which didn't make any sense to me. I went to radio someone about it, but realized that the batteries in my radio must have been dead because it wasn't working. Eventually, I started debating whether I should go find a manager when I felt a hand wrap around my arm. I nearly jumped out of my skin, but before I could react, a woman's voice rang out loud. Friendly, overly familiar. She exclaimed, "There you are," before going on a little spiel about how she had been looking all over for me. I turned, completely thrown off, and saw a woman I had never seen before in my life. She was smiling, her grip firm on my arm, like we were old friends reuniting. Before I could say anything, she leaned in and whispered, her tone dropping to something low and urgent. "That guy's been recording you. Follow me." My stomach dropped. I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance back. The man was still there, only now he wasn't even pretending to browse. He was staring right at me. A cold wave of fear crept over me. I let her pull me. I didn't even question it. The way she grabbed my arm, the way she spoke so loud and casually, like we were two old friends reuniting, I clung to it. I was beyond grateful that someone had realized what was going on and put herself in an uncomfortable position just to help me. She kept up the act as we walked, rambling about something, maybe a trip she had taken, maybe an inside joke we supposedly shared. I barely processed the words. My thoughts were stuck on him. Had he really been recording me? That was creepy as hell. I wanted to know if he was still following us, but I couldn't muster the courage to turn around just yet. The woman steered me through the aisles, moving fast. I barely noticed where we were going, only that we were going, that the distance between me and that man was growing. In all honesty, I was kind of expecting her to quit the pretending to know me at some point, but she kept it up. At one point, it was getting a little uncomfortable, so I glanced behind me, and to my relief, that man was no longer following. The woman kept pulling me forward, though. I told her that we were good now and that we should probably go find my manager, but she just squeezed my arm tighter, telling me that he was lurking somewhere. I thought to myself, so what? What's he gonna do in a store full of employees? I was obviously worried at first because no one was around, but now that I wasn't alone, I started realizing that there wasn't much of a point in being scared anymore. I told her this, but she continued moving. I told her I was serious and planted my feet, twisting my arm slightly to loosen her grip. "You can let go now," I said, but she didn't. She smiled at me, but something in it was off. "Come on, just a little further," she said, basically tugging me at that point. I glanced around. The store was basically dead. We had moved past the registers, past the self-checkout, past the aisles that saw the most foot traffic. The warehouse section loomed ahead, dimly lit and nearly empty. Beyond that was the side exit, the one without cameras, the one employees used for loading shipments. That's when it dawned on me. She was leading me straight to the exit. I didn't think. I screamed for help as I yanked my arm free of her grasp with all my might. She lost her grip just enough for me to pull free. I didn't waste another second. I turned and ran toward the front of the store. As I fled, she yelled out something behind me. She yelled for me to come back, followed by my name, which I hadn't given her. I kept running until I saw one of my coworkers who was running toward me, most likely reacting to my screaming. I told him to call security, which he promptly did. That woman was long gone, though. By the time I told my story to the security guards, that woman and that man were nowhere in sight. They reviewed the security footage, and just as I suspected, the woman and man walked into the store together. She had been with him the entire time. The man's face was clear as day in one of the frames, but hers was always turned away. I had a feeling she was the mastermind behind the whole thing, so I was infuriated that the cameras hadn't picked her face up. Every second of it had been planned. The police got involved, and the whole thing went down as a failed abduction attempt. I'm still waiting for a resolution about it. That man should definitely be easy to track down, given his face was caught on camera. I have no idea how that woman knew my name. That's what terrifies me the most. Those people hadn't just picked me at random. I was a direct target.
Thank goodness for timely warnings. The next tale comes from @HorrorShortsParty. Picture this. It's Valentine's Day, but for one woman, it's a day of horror as she fights off a stalker who breaks into her home. Her bravery leads to his arrest, but not without a harrowing struggle. This story is both terrifying and empowering.
On Valentine's Day of 2019, I experienced the most terrifying moment of my life. Things had been leading up to that night for a while. At the time, I lived in a small house by myself. I used to take walks around the neighborhood almost every day to stay active and clear my head. But after a while, I had to stop. I started noticing this creepy older man every time I left the house for a walk. At first, I just noticed him staring at me from across the street. But day by day, things got more serious. If I didn't see him on foot, I would notice the same car slowly passing by me on my walk over and over again. It didn't take long to realize that it was the same creep in the driver's seat. I hoped that switching up my routine would get him off my back, but he apparently didn't have anything better to do than stalk me. Just when I thought I was safe and could enjoy some time alone, he would appear out of nowhere and start making advances.
Hi there, beautiful. Could I ask you a question?
Who are you? Where did you come from?
Would you like to be my woman?
No, you're disgusting.
I could take care of you. You wouldn't have to lift a finger. Let me use my fingers.
You're sick and you're a freak. Stop following me.
Let me love you!
Oh, I'm calling the cops!
He would lunge at me and try to grab me, but I ran away every time he got too close. It happened several times. The only advantage I had was that he was much older, and I was easily able to outrun him. Of course, I knew I was still in danger. He never made himself visible around my house, but if he could find me in any random spot in the neighborhood at any time of day, then there was a very good chance he knew where I lived, and that I lived alone. I didn't have space for a roommate, and I didn't love going for walks more than I valued my life. So, after a while, I knew I had to stay inside the house and keep it locked up. When I needed to leave, I would only use my car, and I would keep a bottle of mace clutched in my hand. However, it was around that time that I started to feel truly afraid and trapped. I filed a restraining order against him. It was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I finally knew his name. I had a written injunction against him in case he tried anything, and he wasn't allowed within 500 feet of my house. On the other hand, if there was any doubt that he knew my address before, the restraining order got rid of it. I never thought I would have a stalker, but I suddenly realized how knowing that there's some psycho creep out there obsessed with you severely changes almost every aspect of life. I became paranoid of every sound, every shadow, every flicker of light. I rarely left the house unless I knew I would be around people, and I tried to have company as often as possible, even if we didn't do anything. The worst part was, I still kept seeing him from the car, and he always stared me down as I passed him. After months of being stalked by him, the early morning of Valentine's Day finally came. In the middle of the night, I woke up to a noise in the house. After a few minutes, I assumed it was just a random creak in the house and I was being paranoid, so I laid down and tried to go back to sleep. I was half awake several moments later when my eyes opened on their own. In the darkness, I saw a blurry figure at the foot of my bed. Fear washed over me as my vision suddenly became clear. It was him! He found his way into my room and was standing just a few feet away from me. Happy Valentine's Day! Before I knew it, the psycho jumped on top of me. He tried to take what he wanted, but I fought back with everything I had. I screamed for help even though I knew it was pointless. Eventually, I kicked him hard enough to get him off me. While he was vulnerable for a moment, I kicked him in the face again until he fell off the bed. I got ready to fight more, but when he got up, he just ran away. I was thankful that he didn't have a weapon, but I didn't wait for him to come back with one before grabbing my phone and calling the cops. By the time they arrived, my stalker was long gone, but I gave them the description of what happened and how he looked. After a long, stressful Valentine's Day, I finally got a call in the evening from the police station telling me my stalker had been arrested. They slapped a few charges on him and sent him to jail, but I knew that meant he would be roaming the streets again by the end of the year. I took advantage of the valuable time without his presence and got my life back on track. I moved across the city so he wouldn't be able to find me when he got out. Part of me wanted to move clear across the country, but in the end, I knew I would hate it if I allowed him to take my friends and family away from me. These days, I continue to keep my eye out for trouble like him, and I take kickboxing classes in case I ever need to make another creep taste the heel of my boot. The story was inspired by a disturbing Valentine's Day incident that happened in 2019. Cape Coral police say a man was arrested after being accused of breaking into the home of a woman who has a restraining order against him so he could wish her a happy Valentine's Day. According to police, a 38-year-old man named James Carabs Boeing broke into the woman's home and was standing at the end of her bed when she woke up. She told James to leave her room and immediately called the police to report the man. The victim has an active restraining order against him which says he can't be within 500 feet of her residence. Before police could arrive to the scene, James left the house in his car and was seen driving off Chiquita Boulevard into a dead end where an officer pulled him over. Ignoring verbal commands from the officer, James drove off and his Honda was located a short time later, abandoned after he fled on foot. An officer later noticed a man matching James' description walking down the street. When approached, he gave a false name to the officer but was eventually identified. He was then slapped with an abundance of charges and sent to jail.
What a relief that justice was served. Our final story tonight is from At Whisper Diaries. After a long shift, a person encounters a suspicious man at their door claiming to look for his dog. This encounter quickly turns into a frightening confrontation, leaving them and their neighborhood with heightened concerns about safety. It's a chilling reminder of how danger can lurk right outside your door.
I live alone in a pretty quiet, cozy neighborhood in a suburban town outside of a small city. I'd been there for several years and really had no issues with it. I knew most of my neighbors and felt like our town was just really quiet and calm. Nothing much ever happened, and I was able to just live my life in peace. This was in the middle of spring. I'd gotten out of work after a long 12-hour shift, driving home in the dark around 9 p.m. The roads were empty and the neighborhood was still and dark, as most people had been hunkered down inside from the pouring rain for the past several days now. I pulled into my home and went inside, warming up some leftovers in the oven and resting on the couch as I settled in for the night. Only 10-ish minutes after I'd gotten home though, there was a rather loud knock at the front door. I was really put off by it, unsure who it could be or what it could be for, but I got up and saw a man standing on my porch. He had a black rain jacket on and looked drenched. I opened the door. "Can I help you with something?" The man looked at me for a moment. His eyes were droopy, like he was very tired, and his face was stiff and motionless. He looked a bit older than me, maybe in his early 30s, with a dark beard and longish brown hair, soaked by the rain. Finally, he answered, speaking slowly and without much emotion, explaining that his dog jumped his fence and he wanted to know if I'd seen it. I said no, that I haven't seen anything. He nodded in an understanding way, but his eyes wandered past me and into my house as he slowly turned away and walked off the porch. I closed the door. I thought the guy was kinda weird, but maybe he was just really tired and frustrated, especially with all this happening at night and in rainy weather. I hoped he'd find his dog soon though, and aside from that, I went back to the couch and forgot about it. I want to say I was sitting there, watching TV for maybe 15 minutes, before there was a sudden knock at the front door again. Immediately, I was sure it was the same guy, but I had no idea why he'd come back. I got up, very confused and sort of concerned as well. Sure enough, when I looked out, I saw the same guy standing behind the door. I opened it, and this time I wasn't quite as friendly, just straight up asking him what he wanted. He had that same cold look as before. The man pointed toward the side of my house and said he saw his dog run into my backyard and asked if he could go look around back there. The way he said it was kind of strange though. I'm not sure how to explain it, but yeah, something was clearly not right. To get him off my back, and in case he was telling the truth, I said sure, he could go back there and look around. He said thank you, but at the same time as I was starting to close the door, he took a step forward, almost like he thought I was going to let him inside to lead him through the house to my back door. I just continued closing the door though. I'm not sure why he would have thought that, when he could easily just walk around the house and to my backyard. I looked out to make sure he left, and he did, going around to the side of my house. After all of that though, I wasn't too comfortable with the guy just wandering around, so I went to the kitchen where I could watch out the back door. I didn't stare at him through the door or anything, but I cleaned up some stuff on the counters, while occasionally looking back at what he was up to. Every time I looked, it seemed like he was just walking around the perimeter of the yard. Until one time I looked back, and his face was right behind the glass, looking in at me. It literally made me jump. I yelled through the glass, asking what he wanted. He called out, asking if his dog was inside my house. What the hell was wrong with this guy? I sternly said no, clearly showing that I was getting impatient with him. But the man kept asking, wanting me to let him in the house to look around for his dog. He'd bang on the door every time I wouldn't answer. I could see it in his face that he was getting unnervingly angry at the fact that I wouldn't let him in. It was getting kind of horrifying. As he kept hitting the door and yelling at me, I called the police. Only then, once he saw me take my phone out, did he finally stop and leave, which only made it more suspicious as to what he was truly up to. Police came and took a report from me of what happened and what he looked like and all that sort of stuff. But that's where it was left at. There wasn't much they could do right then and there. However, unfortunately, a week later, there was an incident really similar to mine. It's unclear if he forced his way in or was just allowed inside by the victims, but the story was almost exactly the same as what happened to me. A man came knocking on their door, looking for his dog, only for it to take an awful turn. It makes me even more disturbed by that night the man came by my place, doing the same thing. Had I listened to him, or been any more willing to help, I could have suffered a similar fate to the others.
That last story really makes you think about the people you come across in your daily life. We hope these stories have kept you on edge and made you more aware of the world around you. Thanks for watching True Real Studio. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, stay safe and see you soon.